Every night, thousands of drivers pass through toll plazas without giving them a second thought. Pull up, pay the toll, wait for the barrier to lift, drive away. To most people, they're nothing more than another stop on a long highway. But for the people who work the overnight shift, those empty booths can become some of the loneliest places in the country. After midnight, traffic almost disappears. Miles of empty highway stretch into complete darkness. Sometimes, the only person awake for miles is the operator sitting behind a sheet of glass. Every lane is covered by cameras. Every vehicle is recorded. Every barrier is controlled by computers. It's a place designed to make people feel safe, until something happens that none of those systems can explain. The 3 stories you're about to hear all come from people who worked overnight at isolated toll plazas. What began as an ordinary night shift quickly became something they still struggle to explain years later. Whether it was a driver desperately trying to keep a barrier closed, a mysterious warning about a vehicle that should never have arrived, or something hiding beneath the toll plaza itself, each story ended the same way, with someone realizing they were never as alone as they thought. These are 3 disturbing automated toll booth night shift true horror stories. I worked the overnight shift at a cash toll booth for almost 4 years. Most people assume it's an easy job. After midnight, traffic slows to almost nothing. Some nights I'd only see a handful of vehicles every half hour. By 2 in the morning, the highway usually felt abandoned. That was exactly why I remembered every car that came through. This happened last November. I was working alone at one of the last staffed toll plazas on an isolated stretch of interstate. The nearest town was almost 30 miles away. At 2:41 a.m., a dark gray sedan rolled into my lane. It stopped exactly where it should have. The engine stayed running. The driver never reached for his wallet. Instead, he looked straight ahead. Then he slowly pointed toward his rearview mirror. I leaned forward, trying to understand what he meant. He pointed again, more urgently this time. I looked behind his car. The lane was empty. No headlights. No traffic. Nothing. When I looked back at him, he was shaking his head. Not a nervous shake, a desperate one. Then he mouthed 5 words through the closed window. "Don't open the barrier." I frowned. I thought maybe his window wasn't working. I motioned for him to roll it down. Instead, he repeated the same sentence, slower this time. "Don't open the barrier." Before I could react, headlights appeared around the curve leading into the plaza. Another vehicle. Black SUV. No headlights. It coasted silently into the same lane until it stopped only a few feet behind the sedan. The driver of the sedan immediately gripped his steering wheel with both hands. He looked terrified. He wasn't watching me anymore. He was staring into his mirror. The SUV never honked, never flashed its lights. It just waited. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. Normally, impatient drivers start honking within seconds. This driver didn't move, didn't signal, didn't even creep forward. He simply sat there. The sedan driver looked back at me again. He raised both hands, almost pleading, then pointed at the barrier, and shook his head one last time. I reached toward the intercom. "Sir, if there's a problem, I need you to—" He interrupted by violently shaking his head. Then he pointed toward the emergency manual override button mounted beside my register. Only then did I realize what he was trying to tell me. If I lifted the barrier, the SUV would come through too. I picked up the phone and called Highway Patrol. While I was explaining what was happening, I heard tires screech. The sedan suddenly swerved left. Instead of driving through the toll lane, it smashed through a maintenance gate beside the plaza. The chain snapped instantly. The car disappeared down an old service road that had been closed for years. The SUV waited less than 2 seconds. Then it followed. It crashed through the same opening and vanished into the darkness after the sedan. By the time I reached the broken gate, both vehicles were gone. The service road twisted through thick trees before disappearing into the hills. I couldn't even hear the engines anymore. Highway Patrol arrived about 15 minutes later. They searched the service road until sunrise. Neither vehicle was found. There were fresh tire tracks for almost a mile. Then, they simply stopped. The officers assumed the vehicles had turned onto an old logging trail. I went home exhausted and barely slept. The following night, I reported for another shift. Everything looked normal. Around 2:30 a.m., I unlocked the booth and started counting the cash drawer. Something white caught my eye. An envelope had been pushed halfway through the payment tray. There hadn't been one there when I left. My name wasn't written on it. No address, nothing. Inside was a single toll receipt. I recognized it immediately. It was the receipt from the gray sedan, the exact transaction I'd processed the night before. Someone had written a message across the back in thick black marker. "You almost let us through." I looked up so fast I nearly dropped it. The highway was empty. No cars, no people, just darkness beyond the toll lights. I never found out who left that envelope. What still bothers me isn't the message. It's something I noticed months later while cleaning out an old drawer. The original receipt from that night was still in my transaction book. The serial number matched perfectly. The timestamp matched. Even the tiny ink smudge from my faulty printer was identical. Somehow, there were two originals. I transferred to a different toll plaza a few weeks later. I still work overnight shifts, but whenever a driver looks at me instead of the barrier, I always check their rearview mirror first, just in case they're trying to warn me about something I can't see. That was only the first story. The next two become even more unsettling. If you're enjoying these late-night horror stories, subscribe for more true stories every week. Now, let's continue. I spent almost 5 years working the overnight shift at one of the last cash toll booths on an isolated interstate. Most drivers passed through without saying more than a few words. Hand over the cash, take the receipt, drive away. By 3 in the morning, I could sometimes go 15 or 20 minutes without seeing another vehicle. That's why I remember one particular night so clearly. It was just after 3 a.m. A dark green pickup truck rolled into my lane. It looked like an ordinary work truck. Mud on the tires, toolbox in the bed, nothing unusual. The driver handed me a $20 bill. While I counted his change, he glanced over my shoulder toward the empty highway. Then he asked me something that caught me completely off guard. "Has the white van come through yet?" I looked behind his truck. The highway was empty. "No," I answered. "I haven't seen one." For the first time, the man actually looked relieved. He slowly took his change, then leaned a little closer to the window. "If one shows up," he paused for a second, "don't open the gate." I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. His expression never changed. Before I could ask what he meant, the barrier lifted. He drove away without another word. For the next several minutes, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. People occasionally warned us about drunk drivers or road debris, but nobody had ever told me not to let another vehicle through. 7 minutes later, headlights appeared in the distance. A white cargo van slowly entered my lane. The first thing I noticed was the front bumper. There was no license plate. The second thing I noticed was the windshield. It was so heavily tinted I couldn't see the driver. The van stopped exactly on the payment sensor. The engine continued idling. I pressed the intercom. "Good evening." No response. I tried again. "Cash or electronic payment?" Nothing. The barrier stayed down. For nearly a full minute, the van never moved. It didn't inch forward. It didn't reverse. It just sat there. The silence was somehow worse than if someone had been yelling. I reached for the phone to call highway patrol. Almost immediately, the van slowly backed away from the barrier. Not quickly, not like the driver was scared, just slowly. It reversed nearly 100 feet without stopping. Then it turned around in the middle of the empty highway and disappeared into the darkness. I sat there staring after it. About 15 minutes later, highway patrol arrived. I gave them the direction the van had gone. An officer asked if I'd managed to see the driver. I told him I never saw anyone inside. 2 hours later, just before my shift ended, one of the officers came back. They'd found the van beneath an abandoned overpass about 12 miles away. Engine still warm. Driver's door open. Nobody inside. When detectives searched the cargo area, they didn't find tools or packages. Instead, they found folded highway maps, dozens of them. Every toll plaza across 3 neighboring states had been marked with handwritten notes. Some booths were crossed out. Others had comments written beside them. 2 employees, busy traffic, too many cameras. Then they found my booth. Beside it, someone had written, "Works alone." Below that, another line, "No cameras behind booth." I didn't tell anyone this at the time, because it sounded ridiculous, but something had been bothering me ever since the pickup driver left. When he handed me the $20 bill, he never looked at the cash drawer. He never looked at the barrier. He kept looking into my booth, almost like he was making sure I was alone. A week later, investigators called to tell me they still hadn't identified the pickup driver. That surprised me. Every vehicle passing through our plaza is automatically photographed. Every toll payment is logged. Every license plate is recorded. Except, there wasn't one. No image. No payment record. No license plate. Nothing. According to the toll system, the pickup truck had never entered my lane. The only reason anyone believed it had been there at all was because I remembered the conversation. I transferred to a different toll plaza 3 months later. I still work overnight shifts. And every time someone asks me an unusual question through that booth window, I don't answer right away. I check the highway first, because I've never stopped wondering whether that man was trying to warn me, or whether he was making sure I was the person the white van was looking for. I worked as a communications technician for a private company that maintained electronic toll plazas across 3 states. Most people never think about what happens beneath a toll booth. They see the barriers, the cameras, the payment machines. What they don't see is the network of underground service tunnels connecting everything together. Fiber optic cables, power lines, communication equipment. Most of the tunnels are barely wide enough for one person to walk through. Concrete walls, low ceilings, steel doors separating each section. They're not places you spend any more time than necessary. This happened during a maintenance call in late October. Just after midnight, our control center reported repeated communication failures between 3 toll lanes. The cameras were working, the barriers were working, but the payment system kept disconnecting every few minutes. I was the only technician available. By 1:30 a.m., I was unlocking the maintenance entrance beneath the plaza. The tunnel smelled damp, like old concrete after rain. Emergency lights ran along the ceiling every 20 feet. Other than the hum of electrical equipment, it was completely silent. I followed the fiber optic cable toward the first equipment cabinet. Everything looked normal. No damaged wiring. No water leaks. Nothing. About 200 yards farther in, I noticed something on the floor. Footprints. Fresh ones. The tunnel floor was covered with a thin layer of dust from ongoing construction nearby. These prints were dark with wet mud. At first I wasn't concerned. I figured another technician had already checked the line. I radioed the control room. "Did someone come down here before me?" The supervisor answered almost immediately. "No, you're the only technician on site." I looked back at the footprints. There was something strange about them. They all pointed away from me, like whoever made them was walking deeper into the tunnel. I kept going. Every few minutes I'd find another set, always ahead, never behind. It was almost as if I was following someone who had passed through only minutes earlier. Eventually I reached the final maintenance section beneath the oldest part of the toll plaza. A heavy steel door blocked the passage. It was secured with an exterior padlock, exactly the way we'd left it after the previous inspection. I unlocked it. The room beyond wasn't supposed to be used anymore. Most of the equipment had been removed years earlier. The moment I opened the door, I knew someone had been inside. There was a sleeping bag in one corner, a small camping stove, cases of bottled water, flashlights, batteries, a portable radio scanner. The scanner was cycling through highway patrol frequencies. Against the far wall hung several large maps. Every active toll lane was marked, every security camera, every employee entrance, every overnight shift schedule. Someone had spent a long time studying that plaza. Then I noticed another map beside them. It wasn't a map of the toll booths. It was a map of the underground tunnels. One section near the center had been circled several times in red marker. Next to it, someone had written 2 words. "Wait here." I suddenly became very aware of how quiet the tunnel had become. I reached for my radio. "This is Maintenance 12. I need police at my location." No response. Only static. I tried again. Nothing. The radio had worked perfectly less than 5 minutes earlier. I started backing toward the door. Then I heard it. A steel door slammed somewhere deeper inside the tunnel. Not close, but close enough. The sound echoed through the concrete passage. Then came footsteps. Slow, deliberate, metal against concrete. Getting closer. I didn't wait to find out who they belonged to. I ran. Every emergency light looked identical. Every corridor looked the same. I almost missed the exit because I was looking over my shoulder every few seconds. When I finally reached the surface, I locked the maintenance entrance behind me and called 911 from my cell phone. Police arrived within minutes. They searched the tunnel system for nearly 6 hours. They found the room exactly as I'd left it. The sleeping bag was still warm. A kettle on the stove was still hot enough to produce steam. There were fresh food wrappers in the trash. Someone had been there very recently, but no one was found. A few weeks later, engineers reviewed the original construction blueprints from the 1990s. Buried in the archive was a forgotten revision. During construction, one section of the tunnel had been sealed instead of demolished. It connected to an old storm drain nearly half a mile from the toll plaza. There was no record of anyone inspecting it for almost 20 years. I resigned the following month. People always ask if I was frightened by the sleeping bag, or the radio scanner, or the maps. Honestly, none of those things bothered me the most. It was the notebook they found beside the bed. Every page listed a date, a time, a license plate, and one final column. It didn't list the make of the vehicle, or the driver's name. It contained only one word: alone. Sometimes I still wonder why someone hiding beneath a toll plaza would spend years writing down every driver who passed through by themselves. But I've never wondered long enough to want the answer. Those were 3 disturbing automated toll booth night shift true horror stories. Most overnight toll operators will tell you the hardest part of the job isn't the long hours. It's the silence. Hour after hour, you're surrounded by cameras, barriers, and bright floodlights. Yet beyond the edge of the plaza is nothing but miles of empty highway and complete darkness. For most people, a toll booth is just another stop on the journey. For the people working inside them, it's where every stranger has a reason to stop, even if you never learn what that reason is. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, let me know in the comments which one unsettled you the most. And if you've ever worked the night shift on a highway, at a toll plaza, or anywhere that left you with a story you'll never forget, I'd love to read it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more realistic horror stories every week. As always, thanks for listening. Drive safely. And the next time you stop at a toll booth in the middle of the night, take one last look in your rearview mirror before the barrier goes up.